Well, hopefully this is a reality check Tuesday for a lot of Iowa basketball fans because the women's basketball team had a phenomenal season. Of course, it ending in a disappointing manner on Monday with a blowout loss at Oklahoma in the second round of the NCAA tournament. But what a day it was with the announcement that Drake coach Ben McCollum would be taking the Iowa job. He was officially announced yesterday, and I'll be heading to a press conference for the new head man here in just a few minutes. But as we were prepping to leave town and get over for the press conference, the introductory conference for Ben McCollum, news broke from a national reporter that guard Bennett Stirtz would be transferring to Iowa. We're going to be talking about the impact the Hawkeyes have their star for 25-26. We'll talk about it in just 1 second, and we'll also share some highlights of Bennett Stirtz during his one season at Drake. Iowa Floor Covering is sponsoring our coverage. As always, check out Iowa Floor Covering at iowafloorcovering.com. If you have a tile shower, or maybe it's a tile flooring project in the works, maybe it's a carpeting project in the works, give them a call too, 515-379-7000. That's 515-379-7000. That's Iowa Floor Covering in Bondurant for tile, carpet, and more. So reports out there, actually initially yesterday, we got some word yesterday, caught some wind of this, I should say. And this was reported initially by a guy named Mike Mahon, or Mike Mahon. Excuse me, Mike, if I'm mispronouncing your name. Not someone that I'm aware of. Again, you see reports on Twitter and you're like, okay, what's the credibility of said sources? But word on the street, we got this during our live stream following the announcement that Ben McCollum would be coming to Iowa. Word on the street was that Mike was somehow connected to Drake. Well, earlier today, just minutes before beginning to record this video, Jeff Goodman, who is a well-known national college basketball writer and reporter, states on Twitter that Bennett Stirtz has told the Field of 68 show that he will be transferring to Iowa following Ben McCollum to Iowa City. And Stirtz told Jeff Goodman that Ben McCollum's system is a perfect fit for him and that he also believes in loyalty and the opportunity that McCollum gave him when no one else wanted him coming out of high school. So people, if you don't already recognize the situation here, Bennett Stirtz was at Northwest Missouri State with Ben McCollum. Of course, McCollum turned into a coaching legend at Northwest Missouri State. And Bennett Stirtz was a Liberty, Missouri kid, eventually transferred with McCollum to Drake for 1 year. Stirtz ended up being Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year, and this kid is the real deal. If you watched any of the NCAA tournament, the 2 games where Bennett Stirtz played, he was just as good in those games as he was throughout conference season. In fact, his last 2 games as a Bulldog, he scored a combined 42 points and made 5 threes, actually 5 of 9 from 3, so shot over 50% from 3. And, I mean, he was just phenomenal. 9 of 19 against Texas Tech, 8 of 11 from the field against Missouri, and he never came out of any of those games. Either one of those games, played 40 minutes in each of his last 4. He's averaging 39.4 minutes per game. Now, is that sustainable with the physicality, the increased physicality at the Big Ten level? I question that. I wonder that. But Ben McCollum's system is certainly different than Fran's. It's not an up-tempo necessarily style of system. Now, we'll see how that changes to some extent depending on who Ben McCollum can bring in via the transfer portal. But this guy is going to be logging heavy minutes. That's what McCollum does, and yet his guys stay healthy. So how about some other stats from Bennett Stirtz with his 1 year at Drake? Averaged 19.2 points per game on the season, 4 rebounds a game, 6 assists, 2 steals, just 2 turnovers per game. And he shot from 3, 40% from behind the three-point arc, shot 50% overall from the field. That's 55% from 2, played in and started in all 35 games. So here is a guy who, again, was the Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. He won the MVP for the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. Of course, he was all Missouri Valley Conference, and he was all Missouri Valley Conference tournament team. He's 6'4", 180 or thereabouts, and he immediately, according to pundits out there, I saw at least one pundit representing 247 Sports reporting, I believe it was Isaac Trotter, reporting that Bennett Stirtz has become the number 1 player in the transfer portal rankings to this point. and we're over 24 hours into the open window for all teams. I want to share some highlights from Bennett Stirtz, and credit to college basketball scouting here for some of these highlights. But you see Sturtz's innate ability to find the ball, to play within himself. Again, he's not the quickest, probably not the best athlete in the world. But, I've been thinking about this here for the last few days because, of course, we all wanted this to be true, that Bennett Stirtz would become a Hawkeye, especially watching him during the NCAA tournament. And yes, I know most of what he did was against Missouri Valley Conference foe, but we've seen it translate to the Power 4 level. I don't know who I'd compare him to. Maybe the closest comp that I could think of was Matt Gatens. I think Matt was maybe more of a pure shooter, but Bennett Stirtz's numbers really speak for themselves. And at 6'4", which is basically, I know I got into it with a couple of Iowa fans here the last few days because I said Josh Dix was 6'2" or 6'3". He's not 6'5", 6'6", but regardless, Bennett Stirtz is listed at about 6'4", 6'5", and I think that's probably accurate, that he's about the same height as a Josh Dix. And so there's some similarities there as well. They certainly play the same position. With Josh Dix leaving, and I don't expect Dix to return via the portal, who knows what a kind of a push, if any, Ben McCollum is making for Josh Dix. Is going to be taking over not only that scoring role, but the leadership void there, because both guys, Dix and Stirtz, both have 1 year remaining. You see that quick release from Stirtz. That's probably what reminds me of Matt Gatens the most. And he can create off the dribble. He can score off the pass. And, you can see him score at the rim. You see his numbers there at the top of this video as it relates to where he scores. He's got range from outside. And my guess is that this will be the first of several Missouri Valley Conference dominoes that fall, given Ben McCollum. I know it was just 1 year at Drake, but you have to think for a program in Iowa that has done a pretty good job, even under Fran, of picking over some of the best players from that conference, that Ben McCollum will keep that momentum going. And, obviously Iowa's already been in contact with several players from that league and from the Summit League. If you missed our live stream yesterday, we talked about some of the early reports out there as it relates to Ben McCollum and reaching out to some players in the transfer portal. But bottom line is, this is a Ben McCollum kid. The offense is going to be predicated on Bennett Stirtz. And just go back and watch highlights versus Tony Perkins, former Iowa guard Tony Perkins, Missouri, and of course in that second round loss against Texas Tech. And I don't expect Stirtz to be the only Drake guy that transfers over. There have already been rumblings about one or two other guys. Mike Mahon yesterday, I mentioned him because he's the initial guy that I saw that had any semblance of credibility that reported this information. I saw Mike also stated yesterday that he expected Isaiah Howard to follow Ben McCollum over to Iowa City. So, boy, just phenomenal news, again, for Iowa to have, at this point, maybe the best guy in the portal available. I know some people expected it, but it's never a done deal. And this kid could have gotten a massive paycheck elsewhere. Now, you wonder, how much does he actually get in NIL money at Iowa? Because he obviously values loyalty. He's been on some draft boards already. I didn't mention that, but he's been found on some second-round mock draft boards. So he's going to test the NBA waters. Tyler Tashman of the Des Moines Register has reported that already today, that he expects Stirtz to test the waters, but expects him to return. So the bottom line is, here's a kid who probably could have gotten a bigger payday elsewhere, but he's going to take up part of the money. I would expect him to take part of the NIL availability that Iowa has at its disposal. So that is a factor, but expect this to be a positive move and really helpful for Iowa's chances at landing other people in the transfer portal, perhaps at a similar level. Here's a Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year coming to Iowa, following Ben McCollum to Iowa. So, folks, that's kind of my instant reaction. Just huge, massive news. If you look at what Iowa men's basketball has done in the portal since the inception of the transfer portal, this is the biggest get so far, without question. I mean, with all due respect to Drew Thelwell, he was a phenomenal ad. Seydou Traore, Bakari Evelyn, Philip Rebracha, Ben Krikke, good players. But this is the biggest ad we've seen since the inception of the transfer portal, and more to come with Ben McCollum taking the reins of this Iowa men's basketball program. I'll be in Iowa City, folks, this afternoon for the press conference with Ben McCollum. I'll give you a reaction tomorrow. Stay tuned. Follow me over on Twitter if you're not already doing so, or if you're on Facebook, Instagram, Follow me at From the Hawkeye on both Instagram and X, and From the Hawkeye of the Storm on Facebook. We will talk to you soon.